Hi guys, I'm Rhonda and welcome to a new video. Today I'm going over the books I think are perfect to read during the winter season. So yeah, today I am doing my winter book recommendation video. I have been doing these seasonally. I did one for the summertime. I think I did one, I don't know if I did one in the spring, but I know I did one in the summer. I know I did one in the fall, and now we are heading into the winter, and I thought this would be a good time to go over the books that I think that are perfect to read during the winter months. And so the majority of these books on this list are thrillers. I do have a couple of fantasy, I have a women's fiction, and then I also have a historical fiction to share with you guys. But because these books are thrillers, these are going to be books that are going to give you that snowed in, claustrophobic, anxiety-ridden, white knuckle type reads. They're going to be just books that you are going to want to binge read, and I highly recommend these books. I cannot wait to talk about them because some of them I actually just read last week. So super excited to get into those. And then with the others, they're just going to give you those winter vibes. Like obviously the historical fiction and the women's fiction, those aren't going to give you the snowed in, claustrophobic vibes, but they are just bingeable reads where you can wake up one cold morning, get a cozy blanket, make some hot chocolate, put a fire on, and just snuggle in and just binge read a book. So you're going to get different vibes with these books. And then at the end of the video, I do have a couple of books I have not read yet, but I have heard they are really good, and I do want to try and get to them this winter season. But let's start, I guess, with the historical fiction first, because I only have one book. And what I'll do is I'll do the historical fiction, I'll do the women's fiction book next, I'll do my fantasy after that, and then we'll get into all the thrillers. But let's start with The Spectacular by Fiona Davis. This was the very first book that I picked up by this author, and I really enjoyed it. And the reason why I wanted to read it was because this is about a woman who tries out to become a rockette, and she makes it, and this is about her life as a rockette. And I love the rockettes. I am fascinated by them. I'm fascinated by their precision and just how beautiful and talented they are. I think they are amazing. I've seen them twice, once on Broadway and once in Houston many years ago, and I would love to actually see the Christmas Spectacular again. I would love to take my kids to see it. If you haven't, go check it out. It's amazing. But in this book, we are following a woman by the name of Marion. She is 19, and this is set in New York City in 1956, and she has graduated from high school, and she is supposed to go through what happens next in life for women in the 50s, and that is get married. She has been proposed to by her boyfriend. She's supposed to get married, set up house, have babies, and fall in line that way. But that's not what she wants. She has always dreamed of being a rockette, and she finds out they are auditioning for that year's Rockettes. And without telling her family, she tries out and she makes it. What I didn't know about Fiona Davis when I read this book was her books typically have a mystery kind of woven into the story. I wasn't as invested in the mystery as I was into our female main character's life as a rockette, because you're getting a lot of the history and the lore of the Rockettes, and I was riveted by that information. And the reason why this is good to read during the winter months is this is set, a portion of it is set during the holiday season as they are preparing for the Christmas Spectacular, and this was just a really good book. I had a good time with it. Like I said, I wasn't really into the mystery. It was kind of, I wasn't expecting it, and I think that's why. But I've only read one other book from Fiona Davis since I read this one. I read The Stolen Queen, love that one, but I went into that book knowing that there was going to be a mystery, and I think that's why I loved it even more. But don't sleep on this one. If you're looking for a historical fiction that's going to have a little something extra with the mystery that's set around the winter months, then this is a good one to pick up. The next book I want to share is one that I would consider more of a women's fiction. I think it is being marketed as a romance, and it really isn't. And that is The Favorite by Lane Fargo. I read this back in January and had the best time reading this book. I could not put it down. This is such a bingeable book. So if you wake up one Saturday morning and it's snowing and you're looking for just a good, I wouldn't say it's a cozy book, but just a good book that's just going to hook you from the beginning and not let go until you finish, then this is going to be the book you need to read. This book, we're following Katarina and Heath, and they are very famous ice dancers, and they are very well known, they're world renowned, and you follow this book as they meet as kids, as they train, their relationship with each other. It goes up until the present. Well, apparently one of the Olympics that they went to was the Olympics in Sochi, and something shocking happened at those Olympics. And in present time, someone is putting on a documentary kind of going over the 10-year anniversary of what happened at those Olympics involving our two main characters. And because there's a documentary, you're going to get some chapters that are told kind of in interview format that kind of leads into what the next chapters are about. And you're going to get Katarina's version of what happened. I love this book so much. It was a 5-star read for me. It is a book about relationships with not only your partner, but also your relationships with other people around you, how you treat people. It's about ambition and drive. There's a lot of toxic relationships in here. This was like a soap opera in book form, and it is a little on the long side, but I ate this up. I think I read it in 2 days. I devoured it, could not put it down. So again, if you're looking for a book that you can just sit down and binge read, this is going to be the book for you. I highly recommend you read this. You can read it any time of the year, but I think the winter months are going to be the best time you read it because it's about ice skating, and what's more wintry than ice skating? But yeah, I definitely recommend this one. I loved it so, so much. Next up, let's do the fantasy books I want to talk about. I don't have a ton. When I was going through my bookshelves, I really had a hard time picking which books that were set in the winter months or I felt were good during the winter months, because a lot of the books that I would say, yeah, you can read that in the winter. It's a good atmospheric book. But those are books that I went over when I did my fall TBR. I would say if you're looking for more books that's going to be atmospheric and perfect for the winter months, then definitely go check out that fall book recommendation video that I did, because I would say any of those books you could still read in the winter months because they're going to give you those atmospheric vibes. So I will link that in the eye as well as in the description, so you can go check that out if you want to. All right, let's move on to my 2 fantasy books. They're part of a series that I think you can read any time of the year. They're good for the fall season, but I would say specifically they're better to read in the fall or the winter months just because of the atmosphere. And that is the Shepherd King duology. So I read these either, was it last month or the month before? But this duology is a 5-star series. And I don't give a lot of 5 stars to fantasies, but these 2 books absolutely earned every star. These were incredible. The writing is beautiful. And the storytelling was amazing. The plot was clever and unlike anything I read before. It was very, very different, and I ate these 2 up. So the first book in the series is called One Dark Window, and then the second and last book in the series is called Two Twisted Crowns. Did I say these books were good? Because they were. But in the series, we are following Elspeth, and she lives in this town called Blunder, and this town has been cursed to where there is a mist, and if you go into that mist, you get infected. And if you are infected, you are executed. Well, our female main character has been infected, but she hasn't told anyone, and she's kind of hiding it. But part of her infection is she has, it's kind of like a monster in her head, and she calls him the Nightmare. And you're going to get chapters where you're following Elspeth, but you're also going to get chapters where you're following the monster in her head, and he tells her things that she needs to do, and he's trying to take over her whole mind, and she's fighting him. But she wants to cure herself. She doesn't want to be taken over by this monster, and in order to do so, she needs to collect Providence cards, and I believe there's 12 Providence cards, and if she collects all of those cards, then she can break the curse. And she ends up aligning herself with someone else to kind of help her collect those cards. And also with those cards, that is part of the magic system. It's very easy to understand. It's not complicated at all. But with those cards, if you touch them or do something to those cards, you can absorb that magic and wield that magic, which I found really interesting. It's not really tarot cards. It's very different, and these were so good. These were so good. But with these books, I love them so much. Like I said, the writing, gorgeous writing, beautiful writing, lyrical writing. I don't think I was bored at all reading these books. I did listen to some of this on audio. The audiobooks were really good. I love the chapters where you're following the Nightmare as well. His story was very interesting, and yeah, I would definitely read these if you haven't already. As I said, the fall months are a great time to read it, but you can also read them in the winter just because there's a lot of atmosphere. These books, if you haven't read fantasy before and you're wanting to, I don't think these books are complicated. The world building really wasn't complicated, and the magic system was pretty easy to understand. So I would say, even if you haven't read fantasy romance before, maybe give these a try. I think they're going to be pretty easy to follow for someone who is new to the fantasy genre. But yeah, these are great. And also, there is a romance. I don't remember it being a predominant part of the plot. I feel like it was kind of a subplot. So if you like a little bit of romance, then these will definitely have that. Okay, let's move on to the 8 thrillers that I want to share with you guys. First up, let's start with Never Lie by Frida McFadden. I did recommend this in a previous book recommendation video because this is a little bit of a haunted house type thriller, but I would recommend it in the wintertime as well because it involves a freak snowstorm. So in this book, we're following 2 people. I think they're newly married, but they go to this house because they want to buy it. And while they're there, a snowstorm hits this house and they are stuck there. How they didn't know a snowstorm is coming is beyond me, but just go with it. This house actually used to belong to a very renowned psychiatrist or a psychologist, and she disappeared many, many years ago, so her family is selling her home. And while this couple is there, weird things are happening in this house. Also, the female main character, she goes into the psychiatrist's office and she finds all of these tapes of, I don't know if they're of other patients or if they're tapes just of the psychiatrist that's kind of talking about what's going on in her life or whatever. I don't remember. But I remember our female main character finding these tapes and listening to them, and that's where the story really develops. So when it comes to Frida McFadden, I do enjoy her books for what they are. They are popcorn thrillers. They're just a fun, easy, entertaining read. Lately, the books I've read, I have enjoyed less and less, so I don't really pick up her books anymore. But in terms of a good book to read for the winter season that I actually really enjoyed, I would say definitely Never Lie. It's going to give you that snowed-in feeling, that claustrophobic feeling, and I thought it was a pretty interesting thriller. And I think I gave it 4 stars, so I would 100% recommend you guys read Never Lie during the winter season if you're looking for a good snowed-in thriller. All right, let's move on to a few books that I actually just read last week. So I read 3 books back to back, like one each day. All 3 of these books, I could not put them down. And first, let's start with No Exit by Taylor Adams. I read one other book by this author. I read The Last Word, loved it. It was a 5-star read for me. And I've been wanting to read this one, and I thought now is a good time to do it. And I had a great time reading this. This one is definitely going to give you anxiety. It's definitely going to give you that snowed-in feeling, that claustrophobic feeling. Is going to make you wonder, what would you do in that situation? But here we are following a woman named Darby, and she is a college student, and she is on her way home from college to be with her mom who is sick. And she's trying to get there very quickly and outrun a snowstorm that's coming. Well, she gets caught in it, and she finds herself stranded at a rest stop. And at that rest stop, there are 4 other people who are there stranded as well. And at one point, she's outside trying to get a cell signal. And while she's out there, she passes the van and she sees that there is a child inside of a cage inside that van. So she knows something terrible is afoot. She knows one of the people in the rest stop has kidnapped a child, and she's trying to figure out through this whole book how to get this child out and how to find out who is responsible. This book was a wild ride, and I had a great time reading it. I think I gave it 4 stars. Again, if you're looking for a book that involves a snowstorm, being stuck somewhere, and just a fast-paced read, this is going to be the book for you. I read it pretty much in one sitting. I devoured it. So yeah, this was an excellent book. Highly recommend No Exit by Taylor Adams. The next book I want to talk about, and another book that I just absolutely devoured, is Dead of Winter by Darcy Coates. And is this my... You know what? I think I'm going to say it, but I think this one is my favorite Darcy Coates book I have ever read. And I've read quite a few, which is weird too, because this is not a typical Darcy Coates book. She usually writes kind of spookier reads involving ghosts. They're usually more horror in nature. This one is definitely more of a suspenseful thriller, and oh my goodness, is this suspenseful. So in this book, you are following Krista and her boyfriend, and they are going on this winter tour together in the mountains, and they are planning to stay at this remote lodge in the mountains. They're being joined by, I think, 10 other people, and while they are in the bus that's taking them to this lodge, they get stranded and they have to seek refuge at this isolated cabin in the woods on this mountain. And as the story progresses, people are killed one by one. So this obviously is definitely snowed in. And then also too, there's a blizzard and a snowstorm after snowstorm that is hitting these people. So not only are they isolated, they're snowed in, they can't go anywhere, but someone amongst them is killing everyone. So this was definitely suspenseful. It did start off slow, but once I got maybe a third of the way through, I couldn't turn the pages fast enough. I had to know what was happening. The plot twist in this, you know what? I have no words, because when I read the last plot twist at the end of the book, I was like, I was on the couch like this, just like, oh my gosh, what's happening? And then that scene happened. I gasped. My husband came downstairs and he was like, what's going on? I have to tell you about this book. I have to tell you about this book. I have to tell you about this plot twist. And he just kind of shook his head and went back upstairs. But the plot twist in here wasn't amazing, but the way she wrote it just blew me away. This is another book that is a wild ride. You're going to get anxiety. It's very fast paced. It's just so well done. I gave this one 5 stars. I don't give a lot of thrillers 5 stars, but this one definitely earned every one of those stars, and I loved it. It's my new favorite Darcy Coates book. So if you're looking for a snowed in crazy ride, then pick up Dead of Winter. The next book I want to share is Where He Left Me by Nicole Bart, and this was actually my book of the month pick for November, and this was excellent, and it was very different than what I was expecting, but in a good way. This is a thriller, but it's actually so much more than that, and I really don't want to get into why it's different. Just go into this expecting a thriller, but also not. But in this book, we are following Sadie, and her husband, they just got married, have moved into this remote home that her husband used to live in with his family. It's isolated. It's in the woods. I believe it's in the Cascade Mountains, and he goes off for a work trip, and she expects him back on this day. Well, he never shows up. In the meantime, a storm has hit this area, and then after that first night where her husband doesn't come home, she's looking at some of the hunting cameras, and she notices some strangers, some intruders around her property, just kind of snooping around, and it freaks her out for obvious reasons. I would absolutely freak out too. And so this is about her being home alone with these people she doesn't know, kind of lurking around her home. A storm hits, it knocks out the power. This was so good. Like I said, it's very different. I loved where this story went. I thought it was going to go one way. It went a completely different direction, and I love that. The only thing I didn't like about this one is you do get some then and now chapters. Some of the chapters you are following this couple as they meet. Her husband is an astronomer, so you're getting some heavy science astronomy lessons, and I was getting really bored with those chapters because I didn't feel like, other than learning about this couple and how they met and their relationship, I wasn't getting any information that had anything to do with the plot. It was mostly science and stars and planets and stuff like that I didn't care about. So outside of that, this was an excellent book. I highly recommend it. This is a new release for the year. Definitely go check out this book if you're looking for another snowed in thriller with strangers lurking around the property. Okay, the next book I want to recommend is Kill for Me, Kill for You by Steve Kavanaugh. I can't remember if this has a winter setting, but I think I remember it being just cooler weather in general, and I would recommend this either in the fall or in the winter. But this one is a retelling of Strangers on a Train by Alfred Hitchcock. We are following Amanda and Wendy, and they meet, this is set in New York City, and they meet kind of by chance. I want to say they meet at a bar, but I'm not positive. And they are talking and they kind of get to know each other and what's going on in their lives. And one of these women suggests that they exchange murders. For example, Wendy tells Amanda, hey, I will kill this person in your life that is ruining your life if you'll kill this person in my life. That way, if we are accused of the murder, we have an alibi because technically we didn't do it, someone else did. And that's what this story is about. And this one is another one that was incredibly bingeable, and I couldn't put it down. So if you're looking for a book that's full of twists and turns, and my goodness, one of the twists in this book blew me away. I was shocked by it. So I would highly recommend you pick this one up. Like I said, it's good for the fall, but you can also read it in the winter just because it's set around some cooler weather. So yeah, Kill for Me, Kill for You by Steve Kavanaugh is an absolutely must read. Another book I want to share with you is A Killing Cold by Kate Alice Marshall. This is definitely set in the winter months. In this book, we are following Theodora Scott, and she is dating this man named Connor. He is very wealthy, and he takes her home to the family's winter estate to meet some of his other family. And while she's there, she's kind of looking at some of the other cabins that are kind of abandoned, and she comes across a picture of herself when she was a little girl. So apparently she has been to this estate before, but she has no memory of it. So throughout this book, she's trying to figure out what her connection is to this family and to this land. And this one is definitely going to give you the winter vibes just because it's set during the winter season. This was creepy and atmospheric, and the plot twist was interesting, and I really enjoyed this. I think I gave it 3 stars. It wasn't my favorite thriller book ever, but I did enjoy it enough to recommend it to you guys. So if you're looking for another snowed-in thriller that has atmosphere, that's set during the winter months, this is going to be the one for you. It had some good twists, and it's one that I would recommend. Next up is a Riley Sager book, and that is his newest release called With a Vengeance. And a lot of people did not like this. I am the exception. I love this book, and I think the reason why people did not like it is because it's very different than anything he's written before. This is more of a whodunit type mystery than his usual spooky, creepy thriller. And even though this is a little bit different because it is a murder mystery, it still has elements in it that make it a Riley Sager book. It's fast-paced and it's very, very twisty, as is the case with all of his books. So in this book, we are following Anna, and this is set in the 50s, and about 12 years ago, her entire family was destroyed by a group of people, and justice was never brought. So she invites the people who destroyed her family on this train ride from Philadelphia to Chicago. She kind of commandeers it. They are the only people on this train, and her whole point is to confront them and take them to Chicago, where the FBI is waiting with all of the evidence that she has given to them so that they can arrest these people. Once they are on this train and it starts going, people start dying one by one. So someone on this train is killing the others, and she doesn't know who. She hates these people. She loathes them. She wants them in jail, but she finds herself in a situation where she needs to try and save them. So that was a very interesting take on this. I thought I knew who it was, but I was very, very wrong. Also, at the same time that this train is headed to Chicago, a snowstorm is hitting, so you're going to get those snowy vibes, and I really, really enjoyed it. Like I said, it's very fast-paced. It's very Agatha Christie-like, so if you liked Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie, then you would like this one because it's a little bit of a retelling of that story. Is it my favorite Riley Sager book? No, it's not. My favorite is The Only One Left and Home Before Dark, but this is an easy third place read for me. Really enjoyed it. Definitely recommend it. Don't sleep on it. Just go into it expecting more of a whodunit type mystery than a spooky thriller, and you will probably enjoy it too. The last book that I read before I get into the 2 books that's kind of on my winter TBR is a book that I actually really did not like, but I feel like I am the only person who has read this book that didn't like it. And that is Night Watching by Tracy Sierra. This is a book that's definitely going to give you those snowy, creepy vibes. So this is about a woman who is home alone with her 2 children, and she wakes up in the middle of the night hearing things in her home. Well, come to find out, there is a man in her house. So she gathers her kids and she hides with her children in something like a panic room. So through this entire book, this man is trying to hunt them down, and it was very creepy. And she's also trying to figure out a way to get her and her kids out. So that's really all you need to know. I think my biggest problem with this book is there's a lot of then and now chapters are kind of hard to write, at least for me as a reader, because they need to make sense in the story. But with this story, I felt like the chapters where you're going back in time and you're learning more information, it really didn't work for the story. I felt like there was a lot of plot holes I couldn't get past. but it did give you that creeped out feeling with this man hunting this woman and her children down. This is actually set in the winter months, so you're gonna get the snowy and wintry vibes. So I would say if this sounds interesting to you, definitely give it a chance. Check it out from your library. I personally didn't like it just because of some themes that I can't get behind. And I can't tell you what they are because it will spoil the book. Also, all the chapters where you're going into the past really didn't make sense in the story, and it kind of, I would get worked up in the story, and then we would get to the next chapter where you're going in the past, and it brings me back down, and I didn't like that. I wanted to keep going. I could care less about what happened in the past. So yeah, but like I said, this was not my favorite, but I feel like I am in the minority because a lot of people do love this book and think it's fantastic. And because it's set in the winter time, it's going to give you those winter vibes. So if this is a story that sounds interesting to you, then check it out. Okay, so I was going through my physical TBR shelves trying to find books that are set in the winter months, specifically thrillers that I wanted to read this season, and I really didn't have that many. I only came across 2. So I'm going to talk about the 2 books I haven't read, but I've heard good things about them, and I do want to read them this winter season, and I've got plenty of time. I have until the end of February. But the first one I want to read is Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. Alice Feeney wrote Daisy Darker. I'm currently listening to that on audio. I did read Beautiful Ugly. That was her newest release and did not love that one. I've heard amazing things about this one, and I definitely want to try and get to this one during the winter months. But this one says, think you know the person you married? Think again. Things have been wrong with Mr. and Mrs. Wright for a long time. Every anniversary, the couple exchange traditional gifts, and Adam's wife writes him a letter she never lets him read until now. Self-confessed workaholic Adam Wright has face blindness. He can't even recognize his own wife. And Amelia is sick of feeling unseen. When Adam and Amelia win a weekend away to Scotland, it might be just what their marriage needs. This weekend may make or break their marriage, but they didn't randomly win this trip. One of them is lying, and someone doesn't want them to live happily ever after. So this one sounds like it's going to be an unreliable narrator. It's definitely going to be set in the winter months, and this is a book that I definitely want to get to real soon. And then finally, I have One by One by Ruth Ware. I've had this book for a very long time, and it's about time that I finally get to it. But I have read the majority of Ruth Ware's books. She has always been a favorite thriller author of mine. Her books are very broody and moody and atmospheric. They have good twists and turns. I just have been hooked since I read her first book. And this is another one that I really don't even know what it's about. I probably read the synopsis when I first got it, but I've slept many times since then and can't remember what it's about. So we're going to find out together. It says, getting snowed in at a rustic ski chalet high in the French Alps doesn't sound like the worst problem in the world, especially when there's a breathtaking vista, a full-service chef and housekeeper, a cozy fire to keep you warm, and others to keep you company, unless that company happens to be 8 co-workers, each with something to gain, something to lose, and something to hide. When the co-founder of Snoop, a trendy London-based tech startup, organizes a week-long trip for the team in the French Alps, it starts out as a corporate retreat like any other. But as soon as one shareholder upends the agenda by pushing a lucrative but contentious buyout offer, tensions simmer and loyalties are tested. Storm brewing inside the chalet is no match for the one brewing outside, and a devastating avalanche leaves the group cut off from all access to the outside world. Even worse, one snooper hadn't made it back from the slopes when the avalanche hit. As each hour passes without any sign of rescue, panic mounts, the chalet grows colder, and the group dwindles further, one by one. I love a good one-by-one type thriller. So yeah, like I said, Ruth Ware is excellent at writing thrillers, and I know I'm gonna love this one. It's gonna give me atmosphere. It's gonna give me that claustrophobic, snowed in feeling that I love during this time of year. This is another one that I am looking forward to reading this winter season. All right, my friends, these are all of the books that I recommend for this winter season. A lot of these books, actually the majority of these books I've read this past year. I would recommend every one of them. I'm also, again, including a couple of books that are on my winter TBR that I would like to try and get to this season. But if you have read any of these books, let me know what you thought about them. Did you love them, not love them? Or let me know what are maybe the top 2 or 3 books that you will always recommend someone read during the winter season. I'm always looking for books to add to my mental TBR or my ever-growing physical TBR behind me, but let me know what your favorites are. I'm all ears. And for those of you who do not want to comment, maybe you don't have anything extra to add, but you do want to let me know that you made it here to the end, give me a snowflake emoji just in honor of all of the snowed in thrillers that I am recommending to you all. But I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.